Okay, so now we can actually attach textures to these lights, and then we can make it look like it's not just a regular light. Like maybe there's something in the way of this light. So we can get well, let me just show you. So if I click on the color, the checker box for the color, I'm going to attach a grid to this. Okay, and I'm going to invert this. I'm going to say the line color is going to be black, and the filler will be white. And so now, looking at my sample, I kind of have what would look like a window, with the a latticed window. Okay, so now when I render, the lattice of the window shows up as if it was in the way of the light. So that could be a nice effect. And you could do any kind of image you want to. You could go into Photoshop and you could paint something intricate, and it just evaluates its grayscale values. Actually, that's not entirely true. It actually evaluates the RGB colors. So you could actually paint a colored image, and it would project that picture across your objects. Well, sometimes it's not, having to render the entire scene gets kind of rough. And so what we could do instead is do what's called an IPR render. That will help us dial in what we need more closely, and it will re-render a section of the scene as it's needed. So let me keep that one. I'm going to click on IPR, and I'm going to select a portion of the scene that I want it to re-render. And it does this kind of spaz out thing. Okay, and I'm going to keep that kind of over here on the side. And now, actually, let me do this. I'm going to select this light. And now, as I edit this light, so like say the intensity, it's going to re-render this object. So let me do this again. Okay, so as I up the intensity, it re-renders the portion of the scene that I have selected, and that can be really handy for doing some to see if you've got it the way you want it. Okay, now there's one other light that I need to show you guys, and that's called an area light. And it turns out that any object can be an area light. And area lights are made to represent, say, if it's an indoor scene, an area light could represent a window. And so by default, they're rectangles, but you can actually create an area light out of any object. So if you had a light bulb and you wanted to show the light bulb in your scene, then you would make that light bulb an area light. If it wasn't visible in your scene, then you would just use a spotlight or a point light. A point light and a spotlight are pretty much the same thing. Maybe if I feel like it, will go over the point light. So if I create an area light, okay, I'm going to turn off this IPR renderer. What happens here is this entire panel, this entire square will project light. into the room, or onto the object in this case. Okay, and so it also has decay options and things like that, intensity options. But let me turn out my other lights. I'm just going to hide them. Now the only thing that's working is this area light. I'm going to render. And there it is. So an area light works a lot like the other light, the spotlight, except it doesn't exist in a finite point in space. And so again, we could attach a texture to this. Let's do a cloth pattern this time, just for fun. To that, and now if I render, it projected that cloth pattern onto my scene. Now it's kind of hard to see, so let me pull it back. I'm going to increase its intensity. We'll render it one more time. Okay, so there's what it looks like with the cloth pattern attached to the light's color. Now there's one other light I guess I'll just show you real quick, and that is the point light. And the point light just shoots out in every direction. Okay, so if I put this down low to the floor, it actually doesn't matter which direction it's pointed, so I'll switch off of that tool. And I still have all the same options. I'm going to tell it to have a linear decay, and I'll render. Okay, so it looks like I need to hide my area light. I'm going to increase the intensity of this point light. And try it again. So it's not that good all by itself, but you can see how it kind of falls off. And these are all just, they're worth experimenting. You can see how it exists at one point in space, which can't be seen, but it radiates out from that point. Anyhow, that's all the lights that we would use in Maya. And so what you want to think about while you're using these, when you're going to use these, is where are the lights in your scene, and what kind of light are they? And you want to put them in the same place that they were when you shot your video. And you want to set them to adjust the intensities and all of that, so that everything matches up nicely. Okay, and you'll get that all dialed in pretty close, and then we can gain further control through some render settings, which I'll show you another time.